Hello everyone, this is Calypso and Bubbles, and we're here with another RPG Maker tutorial video. This is part 2 of the fishing video that we posted last week. If you haven't seen that one, I will post a link to it in the description. You can also click on Bubbles and he'll take you there too. So, there's a lot we have to go over. This video's definitely going to be a little bit longer than 20 minutes, but, bear with me. So, I added a little bit more to this. First of all, if we try and fish now, we don't have a fishing rod, so we can't fish. So we open this chest. We have a fishing rod, a wooden one, and that is in our inventory under key items, with our fishing pot as well. We have this now, so we can fish, right? Nope. We don't have any bait. So now if we go down here, we get some bait, and now we can fish. We'll use the basic bait, we equip the wooden fishing rod, and then we're just gonna wait. There we go. We got a small chub. And now the game asks if we want to keep it or not. If we say no, we just throw it back into the water. If we say yes, then I'll add it into the array. And now if we check our fishing pot, we have a small chub in there. Excuse me. We have a small chub in there. And now if we go talk to the cat, the fish merchant, we can buy bait from her, we can look at our fishing rods, we can sell the fish, or we can say we're good. And down there she tells the player, let me move myself a little bit, you can't fully... Let me just move over a little bit. So you see there, she's basically telling the player how much fish are worth for today's rates. And then the catch of the day is a bass, which will give you 50% more silver should you sell that to her. So if we sell right now, we got, what, a small chub? So we should only get, yeah, we got a small chub, which is only worth 10. And total silver we're going to get out of this is 10. So she'll give us 10 silver, sounds good. And we get 10 silver right there. Anything else, we are good to go. So let's get into what's going on here. Let's get the code. Let's start with how the game determines your bait, right? So the game will ask the player, which bait would you like to use? Or I guess we say what bait, but it doesn't matter. So we're setting up a temp array here, bait array. It's empty. And then we have bait A, which is our basic bait. Bait B is our quality bait, and bait C is our superior bait. Where the call here, gameparty.num items, data items, 14. This is just basically saying how many items of item index 14 does the player have? Does the party have right now? Because if you look back in items, this is where I have it. 14 is basic, 15 quality, 16 superior. Boom. So we go down here and we say, okay, if the player has any basic bait, then push this string, basic bait, into the array. And then bait B, quality, and then superior, etc., right? And then this right here, this is a call for show choices. This is how you set it up. This is part of the RPG Maker MVMZ script calls. Once again, the link to that spreadsheet will be in the description below if you want to peruse it. But basically, we're just setting up choices to be bait array because it takes in an array. And then the first one here is determining, let me show you guys this to help kind of establish it. So the first number there was establishing like what the default choice is and then cancel option. Wrong one. There we go. Choice background. You either set to 0, 1, or 2. I believe 0 is, once again, we show this so it's easier for you guys to see. Background, if it's 0, it's window. If it's 1, it's dim. And then 2 is transparent. Window position, once again, I believe it goes left, right, middle. So 0 is left, middle is 1, and then right is 2. In here. And then game message dot set choice callback in gets set to game variables dot set value of I'm just using variable 1 because I always make variable 1 my kind of like dump variable where I just it's there for whenever it needs to be. I usually use it for just RNG, but I'll use it for other stuff too. And then normally you would just put like in here, so like 1 and then in. We don't want to do that because in our situation, if you pick like the second option, it would set variable 1 equal to 1. Excuse me. And then 2 and then 0, etc, right? But we don't want to do that because we need the game to know what kind of bait you're using. And basic bait will always be in the 0th index of the array, obviously, but quality bait and superior bait might not always be in the second or in the first and second position, respectively. Quality, you might not have any basic bait, and then but you have quality bait. Then quality bait's in 0th index. So we can't do it that way. So we have to do it this way. We're saying set variable 1 equal to bait array dot in. So it'll be set to, the 1's going to be set equal to the script call of whatever is in that position, or that index, so to say. Because then we come down here to this code, which is a simple if-else if statement. So if game variable 1 equals basic bait, then we're going to set variable of 12 equal to 0. And then we take that item, game party.lose item, data items 14, but 1. Take 1 basic bait away from the player. Take 1 quality bait away from the player, etc, right? Easy. Game variable 12, in this context, is where I'm keeping track of what bait type the player is using. So let's go back to fishing. So in my projects, I've made it to where bait basically determines the type of fish you're gonna get. Or not the type of fish, but how big of a fish you're gonna get. The better bait you have, the bigger fish you can catch, right? So if you remember last time, we had this fish RNG math.random int, basically getting a number between 0 and 100. And depending on that number, it will determine whether you get a small, medium, or large fish. So we have this code here that's taking bait type, and if bait type equals 0, which means you're using basic bait, it doesn't do anything. But if you're using better bait, quality or superior bait, it's going to take that number. So let's say it generated like 30, it would add 30 to that 30 and get 60. While if you use superior bait, it would add 60 to that RNG value. Basically making it so that by using better bait, you're increasing your chances of getting a larger fish. Now, the next thing here, so that's how this... so the next thing here, let's go look at the rods. Okay. So, what rods do, or how I'm making them work, is that the better rod that you have, the more time that the player gets to catch the fish. So we just have a switch case here. Once again, you could use a if-else statement if you wanted to here. It doesn't matter. It's up to personal preference. Both do the same. But I'm just doing switch true. So I always want this to run. And then in the case that the game party has item 19, 20, and 21, which is the numbers for where I'm keeping the the fishing rod, the fishing rod, bamboo, graphite, fiberglass. I know none of these look like fishing rods in the icon. It's because surprisingly, RPG Maker VX Ace doesn't actually have an icon that is a fishing rod, which is really weird. It caught me by surprise. I thought it did. But if you squint your eyes really tight, then it like still doesn't look like a fishing rod. So just use your imagination. So let's go back here. So we have it set up so if it's wooden, then game variable 13, which as you can probably guess, game variable 13 is what we're saying the rod type is. That's where we're storing in there. And then we put 30, 60, or 90. So we go back to fishing. If you remember up here, once again, the game is setting a random value for game variable 7, which is the total catch time the player gets to catch the fish. And then right here, the game is going to take game variable 6 is going to equal game variable 7, which once again is going to be a random number between, between 240 and 360 frames, basically. And it's going to subtract game variable 13 away from that to make it be 6, which is essentially, you know, when you can start catching the fish. So if you have a better rod, that's going to further decrease this value, and give the player more time. Because right here, if it's small, you know, we have it set up here already to be, if it's small, then it subtracts 90, 75, 45 from the counter, showing how much time you have. So the better rod that you have, it gives you even more time to catch the fish, which is good. And I know these numbers might seem like, once again, these number amounts are up to you, the dev, as to how tough you want to make your fishing mini game, and how, because, you know, if you make it to where you can basically make it to where catching a large fish is almost impossible if you don't have a better fishing rod. You know, just don't have the time. And that encourages players to get a better fishing rod. So let's go back over here to rod select. Yep, it does that. And what this is doing is that the game is basically just taking into account of what the best fishing rod the player has is. Which, my apologies, let me adjust this real quick because this needs to be in another order. Here we go. Okay, so my problem there is that I had them in the wrong order. Because it's gonna catch this one first, if it breaks it, then it doesn't read anything else. We obviously want the game to equip the player with the best fishing rod that they have at their disposal. In the case of how I have it set up, the fiberglass is the best one the player can get. So we want to put that one first, and then the graphite next, then the bamboo, and then the wooden fishing rod last, because that's the worst one. Okay, so the game basically will set that equal to variable 1, and all that's being used for is just to tell the player what you equip, what you automatically equip, because once again, the player, we want to make this convenient for the player. You should automatically just equip the best one that you have. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the fish merchant. So, once again, I have her shop processing set up here for her bait, her rods. These are pretty self-explanatory. This is pretty simple stuff. She's in a loop. This right here is in a loop. Tiny little detail, tiny little, like, me thing. But sometimes the player might accidentally exit out of the fishing, or the shop menu or something like that, and they didn't mean to. So I always like to just, like, confirm, have the merchant confirm that with the player that, like, are you good? And if it's yes, then, or sorry, if you say no in this case, then she says, have a nice day, and it breaks the loop. And if you say yes, then it will take you back up to here, and you'll just, like, you know, what you need. So that's just a minor thing that I do. So if you say I want to sell fish, the game is going to take into account a game variable value of 10, which once again, that's the array variable that we're using to keep track of how many fish the player has. As long as that is greater than 0, then you can just sell them, and she'll do the sell fish command. We'll get to that in a bit, what that does. Then she'll tell the player how much silver or gold, whatever currency you're using, she's going to give the player. And you say sounds good, then it plays coin sound effect. You get that much gold based on sale total, which is variable 16. Once again, I'll explain that in a bit. And then control variables, we empty the fish pot, we set it to an empty array, and then you're all good to go. This is another thing I like to do. If you do \$ control, it's a control character for the gold window. This is another personal peeve of mine, but if the player is getting or losing money in this, not in like a shop menu, I always like to kind of like show that, so it, the window shows up and the player knows that they got money or they lost money. Just to further clarify that to the player. And so let's look at that code when you're selling fish. So we established these arrays here. Fish array, pot size. Fish array is just set to a variable value of 10, which once again is keeping track of what fish you have. Pot size is based on the length, which is, how many fish are in that pot. Fish sale set to 0, sale total set to 0. Spec fish or special fish, I just call it spec fish, equals bass. Here's another example of where you can, like, this is hard-coded in, but if you wanted to, you could easily tie this to a variable and then just have it to where the variable changes. If you have like a day-night cycle or a season cycle in your game, you can set it up so that there's a certain type of fish that becomes more valuable during a certain season. You can set it up to where maybe different merchants prefer different fish. It's up to you. But this is hard-coded in, but yeah, you have the ability to change that and make it any way that you want it to work. And then sale equals 0. And then we have a for loop here, and how this is working is that I equals 0, as long as I is less than pot size. So if you have 2 fish in there, then pot size dot length, because it's based off the length, is going to equal 2, right? So it'll run through this twice, because it'll go 0, does what it needs to do, go up to 1, does what it needs to do, then it'll go up to 2, 2 is not less than 2, so it gets out of the for loop. And then I++ is just saying that when you come back up here, increment I up to the next step. And so we're going to reset sale to 0 here. This is not redundant. This is here for a reason. So the first thing it's going to do is that we're going to introduce you guys to the includes method, which is basically, does this thing include this thing? So if fish array I, so in this case, let's say I0, so the first index of the array, let's say it's a small chub. If small chub includes small, then do this. Includes is basically just checking to see if, if small is anywhere in that string. And it doesn't have to be a string, it can also be an integer. But as long as it's included in there, and always remember, it is case sensitive. So because in my other code, I say small chub, the S in small is capitalized, make sure you do the same here. And so if it registers that it is a small fish, then it's going to say sale plus 10. Otherwise, make it, if it's medium, 25, and then if it's not small or medium, then it has to be large, plus 50. And once again, this is another example of you can absolutely tie this to a variable. If you want these prices or values to fluctuate throughout your game or anything like that, you can do that. And then right here, we do the same thing. We just say, if it includes spec fish, which once again, this gets the string, for now is bass. So as if the fish it's checking is a bass, if that's in the string, then it's going to take that amount and then times it by 1.5, which if you're not the best at math, that's basically just taking 50% of the value and then adding it to the original value. So 10 times 1.5 would give us 15, because half of 10 or 50% of 10 is 5, and then we add that to the 10 plus 5, 15. And then this is another method. It's the ceiling method. There's the 3 common ones you would see is math.ceil, math.round, math.floor. Math.ceiling takes the value that you put into the parentheses, and it always rounds it up. Floor always rounds it down, and then round does the standard rounding rules, which, if it's above 5, then round up. If it's below 5, round down. And RPG Maker generally always truncates no matter what, but I put this in because I want to be in favor of the player, and I want to give them, if there is like a decimal if you're getting like something 0.5, then I do actually want it to round up for the player. So to be in favor of them. That would only really happen with 25, because half of 25 is 12.5. So you would get a decimal out of that value. It would be 37.5. So that would just round it up to be 38. Instead of 37. It's one extra silver. Just, you know, but once again, you don't have to put this in if you don't want to. This is only if you want to be in favor of the player, you know. And then sale total, we say sale total plus equal to sale. And then these two lines of code right here, you don't have to put these in. This is only here for the purpose of me showing you guys. That was just the tutorial portion of it right here. Which, one thing I'm gonna try and make sure to do from now on in my tutorial vids, if I'm showing off something and the text for it is in gray, then know that that's indicating that this is a display for tutorial purposes. This is usually something you would not show in game. So I'll try and keep that consistent. But yeah, so basically that's what these last two lines of code are doing right here. Basically just adding the fish, the icon that you're asking for, the value of the fish, and then pushing that into the variable 15, so that way you can see like, oh, this fish got this value, this fish got this value, this fish got this value. Once again, you don't have to do that. So don't worry about this too. But this one's important. Make sure you include this one. Because then at the end of it, once it's done calculating all the prices for the fish, it's going to take the sale total and set that equal to variable 16, which is keeping track of, you know, the total cost of the fish that you got. And then if you remember with the cat merchant's code, she's going to give the player change gold increased by variable 16. Oh, she also will not tell the player, this is just a code, just taking the length of the array, and then as long as the length of the array is greater than 0, aka you have fish to sell, then she'll offer, if you know, she'll offer to buy them off you. Otherwise, she'll say you don't have any fish. Yeah, so that's just a check. And yeah, and then that's how, there you go, that's how that works. And then fishing, I don't know if I showed you guys. Oh, here we go. This is pretty simple. Basically, like, if you choose to keep the fish, then once again, I commented out this code. This is the code we used last time. We don't need to use it anymore because once again, this is better because it helps keeps the player's inventory empty or more empty. So, but this code right here, this is code that you don't necessarily have to do. This is just for me. Because if you add items or push items into an array, then it doesn't have a space after the comma. But I'm showing that information to the player. That information, the variable 10, is being placed into the fish pot right here, variable 10. This is displaying the information. So if you want to make it to where there's a comma after the space, all you have to do is just tell the game to check and see if the length of the array, if it's greater than 0, indicating that you do have a fish in your pot. If you don't have anything in there, then we just tell it to, okay, just go ahead and push that fish into the array. It's fine. But if you already have one in there, then we're basically just doing this, where we're doing these two quotation marks in a space in between them, plus the variable 8, which is the fish you caught, small chub, small snapper, etc. This will put a space before that string. So that way, whenever you look at it in the array, there's like a space after the comma, like you would normally do when you're showing a list of things. And so yeah, that's how that. So once again, this is code where if that does bother you, this is how you get around that. If it doesn't bother you, don't worry about it. It's up to you. And then if you say no, you just throw the fish back to the water. It doesn't do anything. And then of course with the fishing spot, it's just calling fishing event. Which right here, once again, common events are your best friend. Always remember, common events are your absolute best friends. Always use them. Whenever you're working with code that you're going to be using multiple times, make sure you use common events, because then if you ever need to edit something or adjust it, I don't have to go to every single, like, oh no, I have to go to every single fishing spot in the game and change the code to match it. No, it's based off a common event. So if we change something, it is changed for everything else. So common events are your best friend. So the way that it's working here for fishing event, it goes in order of, it checks if the player has a wooden fishing, or if the player has a wooden fishing rod first off. You can change this, because in the context of this, the player can't even like get any money or anything like that to get other fishing rods, but in your game, that might not be the case. The player might be able to just straight up buy a better fishing rod before they can get the basic one. So you just change it to, you could just change it to be like a switch where anytime the player does buy any fishing rod, if the player has any fishing rod, then it turns on a switch, which would then, you know, make it to where it's like, oh, hey, the player has a fishing rod. So you can also make it to where it just like does a script call where it just like checks to see if the player has this fishing rod, this fishing rod. Basically what this is doing here, this code right here is just checking. It's saying value of 11. It's saying game party.num items data 14. So it's taking the amount of basic bait, quality bait, and superior bait that the player has, and it adds it all up into variable 11. And then bait count right here, which is variable 11. If it's greater than 0, then, you know, then you can fish. You have bait. Otherwise, you have no bait. And then same here, you don't have a fishing rod. And then it checks here. Once again, it takes the length of your pot, or the length of the pot array. If it's less than, this is hard coded, 14, game variable 14. Oh, sorry, this is soft coded. Game variable 14 is keeping track of like the size of your pot, how many fish you can hold inside of it. You could just make this 3, but I just have it set up to where with the intention of the player could potentially upgrade their fishing pot and have more fish be stored in it at once. So, you know, once again, just tie it to a variable and just have this be adjusted. But right now this is just a 3. That equals 3. So as long as the length is less than 3, then you have room to catch more fish. If you don't have any more room, then it'll just tell the player your fish pot is full. You can't do it. Otherwise, it goes here and it calls common event. It does bait select, rod select, and then the fishing event. And boom, there you go. Player does their fishing, and it's all good. Yeah. So that's all I have to really explain today. Sorry if this one went over the 20-minute mark, but there's a lot to explain here. I had a lot of fun working with this code. I just got super into it. It's setting up a fishing mini game was like way more fun than I thought it'd be. And there's so many more like factors and variables you can mess with in regards to this. You could make it to where the fishing pot, the contents of it or what it can hold is based off of like weight as opposed to just the number of fish you put in there. You know, another idea that I have in one of my projects is that there's like a legendary fish that you can only catch if you have like legendary tier bait. So the game would take into account of like if the player's using that bait, then it basically you would on the checker here that's determining what kind of fish you get, you would just make it to where like if fish RNG is less than or equal to like 500, and then if the game registers that you're using legendary bait, then it'll like add 500 to the number, you know, a number that it can't reasonably get to in any other situation. And then it's like, oh, it's 500, so you're guaranteed to give the player the legendary fish. And that one gives you like no time to catch it. It's like the default timer it would give the player here. It would probably just not have it. It'd be like -1 So, you know, the player would need to have like a really good fishing rod to even catch it. You know, there's stuff you can do there. You can make it to where this here where it's like fish RNG, where it's determining what type of fish you have. You can make there be a bait type that guarantees that you get a certain type of fish. And once again, I would just change up this temp variable, fish RNG, just make there be a different RNG value that's tracking that. And then when it does this, it would do another if statement, if else statement to check and see what bait the player's using, and then based on that number, it would by default it would set that it will set this temp variable equal to 25, 50, whatever, to guarantee that you get this kind of fish. You could do that with the bait. There's just so many different factors you can mess around with on for fishing. So it's just like there's just a lot, but it's really fun. So I hope this helped. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, then feel free to let me know. Next week will be, well, it'll be something different next week. I think I've covered as much as I can with fishing, but of course, if there's anything else you guys need me to explain, or something you want to see done, let me know. But yeah, until then, you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!